The Galactic Council Hall buzzed with the muted conversations of hundreds of species. Envoys and diplomats from every corner of the galaxy gathered in the massive chamber, their varied anatomies seated in accommodations designed to suit their diverse forms. The air carried a faint scent of antiseptic, a neutral compromise that offended no one's sensory organs too severely. In the lower tiers, nestled between the bulky Ernithai delegation and the hovering representatives of the Melosian Collective, sat Earth's small contingent. Their section lacked the ornate decorations and status indicators that adorn the areas reserved for the founding species. Ambassador Rebecca Lynn adjusted her translator earpiece, her face a careful mask of diplomatic neutrality despite the slight she and her team endured daily. The proposal regarding Amendment 9-2C will now be addressed, announced the session director, a tall Dravari whose silver skin glimmered under the chamber's ambient lighting. Concerning the standardization and regulatory oversight of interspecies transit routes, with particular attention to the Earth-adjacent corridors. Lynn exchanged a glance with her deputy, Marcus Okafor. They'd received no prior notification about this agenda item, despite it directly affecting Earth sovereignty. High Counselor Trell of the Krell Dominion rose from his elevated position. His massive form, covered in iridescent scales, commanded immediate attention. The amendment merely formalizes what has been operational reality for decades, he rumbled. Earth's transit space requires galactic oversight to ensure proper integration with established networks. With all due respect, Lynn started, activating her speaker. The sound came through noticeably lower than the previous speakers. Earth has maintained its transit corridors without incident since joining the Council. We've adhered to all safety protocols. Safety is but one concern, interrupted Representative Shernaw of the Shandari hegemony, her translucent appendages waving dismissively. The question is efficiency. Your species' primitive navigational systems require constant accommodation from more advanced vessels. Snickers rippled through the upper tiers. Lynn felt her cheeks flush but maintained composure. We request time to review the full text of the amendment before proceeding to a vote, she stated firmly. That won't be necessary, the Dravari session director replied. The amendment contains standard language, already approved in principle during preliminary committee discussions to which Earth was not invited. Okafor muttered, just loud enough for Lynn to hear. Before Lynn could press further, the chamber's priority alert system activated. The central holoprojector flickered, indicating an incoming transmission classified as urgent. We have a priority message from Earth, announced the communications officer, sounding surprised. The murmurs in the hall grew louder. Earth rarely utilized emergency protocols. They couldn't afford the political capital such interruptions cost. The hologram materialized, revealing Chancellor Stewart of Earth, her silver-streaked hair pulled back severely, her expression uncharacteristically hard. Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice lacking the deferential tone typically adopted by Earth officials. I address you today not to request, not to petition, but to inform. The hall quieted. Even the typically restless Zerani delegates stilled their perpetual motion. For 73 years, Earth has participated in this council. We have contributed resources, knowledge, and loyalty. We have fulfilled every obligation placed upon us, accepted every restriction imposed. Stewart's image seemed to sharpen, growing more defined as the transmission quality unexpectedly improved. Today, that ends. The chamber's environmental systems briefly faltered. The gravity wavered, lights flickered, and several translation feeds cut out momentarily. Our diplomatic and intelligence services have uncovered incontrovertible evidence that Earth's membership agreement, the very foundation of our relationship with this council, was never properly ratified under galactic law. Chancellor Stewart's image expanded, displaying alongside her a series of documents, official council records with key sections highlighted. Earth was never granted full member status. The Integration Treaty of 2157 contains hidden clauses accessible only to founding species that classify humanity as a provisional entity, a designation that has allowed this council to exploit our resources and technologies while denying us true representation. High Counselor Trell surged to his feet. This is outrageous. Cut this transmission immediately. I think not, Stewart continued calmly. As of this moment, Earth officially withdraws from all agreements with the Galactic Council. We sever all diplomatic, economic, and technological ties. Ambassador Lin and her team stood, gathering their devices and materials with practiced efficiency, ignoring the stunned stares of the delegates around them. You cannot simply leave, the Dravari session director sputtered. There are protocols, transition periods. We are not bound by protocols established under fraudulent pretenses, Stewart stated flatly. For decades, you have maintained the illusion of our membership while treating us as tools. Now, you will learn the cost of that deception. The transmission abruptly terminated. Simultaneously, Ambassador Lin's delegation activated small devices on their wrists. Within seconds, they vanished, transported away by technology the Council had not known humans possessed. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, demanding explanations, issuing threats, calling for emergency sessions. But beneath the pandemonium lay a current of unease, a dawning realization that something unprecedented had just occurred. In the confusion, no one immediately noticed that every console connected to Earth-based systems had gone completely dark. The ancient Tholian observer in the highest tier, who had witnessed centuries of galactic politics, leaned toward his aide. So, he whispered, his voice like rustling leaves, "It begins." High Counselor Trell's massive fist slammed against the polished surface of the emergency session table. The impact sent spiderweb cracks through the supposedly unbreakable material, a physical manifestation of the fractures spreading throughout the galactic community. "I demand an explanation," he roared, glaring at the intelligence director, a nervous vexery whose compound eyes reflected Trell's fury back at him in multiple facets. How do we not see this coming? The emergency council chamber, smaller and more secure than the main hall, contained only the highest-ranking members of the galactic leadership. The atmosphere was thick with tension and the faint ozone smell of overtaxed environmental systems. All Earth embassies across council space have been evacuated, reported Admiral Zortan of the patrol fleet. The blue-skinned military leader projected a series of images showing abandoned diplomatic compounds. Their personnel disappeared within minutes of Chancellor Stewart's announcement. They left nothing behind. All sensitive equipment was either removed or destroyed. "Destroyed how?" asked Representative Cherna. "That's the concerning part," Zortan replied. "No explosions, no energy discharges. Systems simply disintegrated at the molecular level. Our scientists have never seen anything like it." The director of interstellar commerce, a Hidori whose translucent body pulsed with agitated red light, spoke next. "We're receiving reports of Earth vessels vanishing from tracking systems. Not cloaking, they're completely gone. Simultaneously, we've lost connection to Earth's information network. All data channels are dead. This is clearly a coordinated action," Trell growled. "But where did they get such capability? Their technology is inferior to ours." The session director gave a nervous laugh. "Is it? We've always assumed so, but—" A priority alert interrupted him. The central display activated, showing cascading failure notifications from across council space. "What now?" demanded Cherna. "Multiple systems are experiencing critical malfunctions," reported the intelligence director. "Transit control nodes in the Orion sector, atmospheric regulators on Palin Prime, banking networks in the financial hubs. Deep beneath the lunar surface, in a facility unknown to the Galactic Council, General Eleanor Stucker surveyed the massive command center with grim satisfaction. Hundreds of officers monitored holographic displays showing real-time data from across the galaxy. The cavernous room, carved from a moon's bedrock and shielded against all known forms of detection, hummed with purposeful activity. "Implode resolution is now at Phase 3, reported Commander Doss, her fingers dancing across a control panel. All sleeper protocols activated. Backdoor access confirmed across 92% of target systems. Stucker nodded, her weathered face betraying no emotion save for a slight tightening around her eyes. Casualties? None reported. General. As instructed, we're avoiding life support and emergency medical systems. Director Ward approached, his tall frame stooped slightly from decades of working in lunar gravity. The council is in full panic mode, he reported, showing Stucker a live feed of the emergency session. They've just realized the scale of what's happening. On the screen, the council members watched in horror as reports flooded in from across their territory. Grain processing facilities on agricultural worlds produced inedible results because their molecular calibration had shifted microscopically. Quantum communication relays transmitted messages with subtle alterations, creating diplomatic incidents between historically tense species. Traffic control AI systems throughout major transit hubs developed mysterious delays, causing massive congestion but stopping just short of dangerous conditions. They still don't understand, Ward said quietly. They think this is sabotage or an attack. It's neither, Stucker replied. It's withdrawal. Humanity is simply leaving and taking our code with us, added Commander Doss with a thin smile. Across council space, systems that had functioned flawlessly for decades suddenly revealed their secret dependence on human-written algorithms. Beneath the veneer of advanced alien technology lay core programming created by humans. Programmers who had inserted subtle backdoors, time-delayed glitches, and hidden fail-safes at the direction of Earth's shadow government. Contact from Agent Severin on Shandari-9 announced an intelligence officer. Operation Lighthouse complete. All human assets evacuated. Similar reports flowed in from dozens of worlds. Earth's people, diplomats, technicians, scientists, merchants, disappearing quietly, leaving behind only confusion and increasingly unstable infrastructure. Counselor Trell is mobilizing the Krell Defense Fleet, Ward observed. Stucker nodded. As expected, Commander Doss, initiate protocol blackout for all Krell navigation systems. Yes, General. In the void of space surrounding the Krell homeworld, 50 warships prepare to launch. On their command bridges, confident officers issued orders, expecting their fearsome vessels to surge forth with characteristic precision. Instead, navigation systems recalibrated themselves to incompatible parameters. Weapon targeting systems developed inexplicable errors. Communication arrays broadcast on frequencies that no one was monitoring. The mighty Krell Armada, terror of a dozen star systems, drifted in confused disarray, unable even to return to their docking stations without manual override procedures that few remembered how to execute. They welcomed us into their homes, Director Ward mused, watching the Krell fleet's disorganized movements. They just never bothered to check what we were writing into their foundations. General Stucker turned to face the enormous strategic display dominating the center's far wall. It showed thousands of points of light, each representing a human-created vulnerability now actively disrupting council operations. 73 years, she said softly. 73 years of smiling and bowing while they treated us as second-class citizens. 73 years of planting seeds while they mocked our primitive understanding of their technology. She straightened her shoulders, addressing the entire command center. Begin final phase of implode resolution. Cut all remaining ties. Let the council feel the full weight of humanity's absence. On the garden world of Vesker Prime, the financial heart of the council's economic zone, panic spread through the streets. The planet's banking system had collapsed without warning. Accounts vanished, transactions froze mid-process, and authentication protocols rejected valid credentials. Inside the Central Reserve, the most sophisticated financial AI in the sector, designed to prevent exactly this kind of catastrophe, displayed a single message on all its terminals. Diplomacy died in the silence you created. Now listen to the sound of our absence. Similar scenes unfolded across council space. On the agricultural planet Theros, Automated harvesters stopped mid-field, their guidance systems locked in endless verification loops. In the shipyards of Meridian Station, construction drones hovered motionless, refusing to recognize materials they had worked with for years. The mighty terraforming engines of Novice 3, pride of Shandari engineering, initiated an unscheduled shutdown sequence that their own creators couldn't override. As atmospheric processors went offline one by one, the planetary governor ordered immediate evacuation of vulnerable settlements. At the prestigious Galactic Science Academy on Dravari Prime, researchers watched in horror as decades of data began systematically corrupting itself. Not enough to destroy their work entirely, but enough to cast doubt on every conclusion, every measurement, every theory built upon that foundation. In the emergency council chamber, the greatest powers in the galaxy faced a humiliating truth. They had built their civilization's infrastructure on systems they didn't fully understand or control. How did this happen? Demanded Shurna, her translucent appendages trembling with rage. How did we become so dependent on human technology without realizing it? The intelligence director's compound eyes darted nervously. They were useful. Their programmers worked for lower compensation. They seemed eager to integrate their systems with ours. They seemed eager, Trell repeated with a snarl. While plotting this treachery all along. Not treachery, corrected an elderly Tholian observer, speaking for the first time. Self-preservation. We refused them true membership. We exploited their talents while denying them equal standing. What do we expect? The session director's silver skin had dulled to an ashen gray. Can we restore functionality? Replace their systems with our own? Admiral Zortan shook his head grimly. Not quickly. Over the decades, human code became integrated into the foundation of our infrastructure. It would take years to disentangle it, and longer to replace it. Then we must force them to reverse this sabotage, Trell declared. Deploy all available forces to Earth. We will demand their immediate surrender and compliance. Unwise, the Tholian observer cautioned. If they've planned this for decades, they will have prepared for military response. But the Council's fear had hardened into anger. Within hours, a joint punitive fleet assembled, Krell dreadnoughts, Shandari cruisers, Dravari tactical vessels, all manually operated to bypass compromised systems. Their destination, Earth's solar system. What they found upon arrival defied explanation. Earth itself appeared unchanged. Blue oceans, swirling white clouds, the lights of cities visible on its night side. But every orbital installation, every monitoring station, every defense platform that had once surrounded the planet was simply gone. No debris, reported a perplexed sensor officer aboard the Krell flagship. No energy signatures indicating destruction. They've just vanished. The fleet approached cautiously, scanning for hidden defenses or cloaked vessels. Finding none, they established orbit and deployed landing craft toward an apparently abandoned space elevator terminal. Inside the cavernous structure, the joint forces found only empty halls and powered-down systems. No signs of struggle or hasty evacuation, just meticulous absence. In the central command room, a single screen remained active, displaying that same message. You knew exactly what you were doing. Now we do, too. While the Council's finest military minds puzzled over this enigmatic statement, similar scenes played out on Mars colonies, lunar bases, and the research stations scattered throughout the solar system. Everywhere, human presence had been clinically removed, leaving intact but inert infrastructure behind. On Aridan Prime, a planet that had served as humanity's primary extraterrestrial administrative center, an elite Shandari infiltration team breached the central government complex expecting resistance. Instead, they found pristine, empty offices and dormant computer terminals. In a legislative chamber, the infiltrators discovered another active display. This one showed a simple animation, a hand releasing a bird, which flew away and disappeared. They're taunting us, snarled the Shandari commander. No, corrected her lieutenant, studying the image. They're telling us something. They didn't destroy anything they didn't have to. They just left. The commander activated her secure communication device. Central Command, this is Infiltration Team Alpha. Facility secured but abandoned. No hostiles, no data, no clues to human whereabouts. As the Shandari team continued their search, the commander noticed something odd about the building's construction. Certain materials, certain design elements seemed subtly different from standard council architecture, more efficient, more elegant in their simplicity. How long have humans been building like this? She wondered aloud, running her translucent fingers along a perfectly smooth wall junction. Unknown, her lieutenant replied. But these techniques are not in our architectural database. The commander felt a chill of realization. They've been holding back. All this time, pretending to learn from us while developing their own advanced approaches. Her communication device chimed with an incoming message from Fleet Headquarters. Reports were flooding in from across Council space. Critical systems failing in cascading patterns. Social unrest growing on worlds dependent on now malfunctioning technology. Economic activity grinding to a halt as supply chains collapsed. The galaxy's carefully constructed order was unraveling, thread by thread, in the absence of human maintenance. Back on the Krell flagship, High Counselor Trell raged against this invisible enemy. They cannot simply disappear. 7 billion humans, thousands of ships, decades of accumulated resources. Where have they gone? The fleet's sensors scanned the entire solar system repeatedly, finding nothing beyond the abandoned infrastructure and dormant colonies. Earth's population, its military, its industrial capacity had vanished without explanation. Could they have developed some form of mass cloaking technology? Suggested Admiral Zortan. Impossible, Trell dismissed. Such technology would require energy signatures we could detect. Unless, offered the Tholian observer quietly, they've developed something beyond our understanding. The statement hung in the air, uncomfortable in its implications. The Council had always considered humans technologically inferior. Clever, perhaps, but fundamentally less advanced than the elder species. What if that assumption had been catastrophically wrong? As the joint fleet deliberated their next move, a small object was detected approaching from the outer system. Initial scans identified it as a simple probe, unarmed, unshielded, broadcasting on standard frequencies. It's requesting communication, reported the communications officer. Trell hesitated, then nodded. Accept transmission. Maximum security protocols. The holographic display activated, showing Chancellor Stewart once more. Unlike her previous appearance, she now wore a simple military uniform with no insignia or rank indicators. Counselor Trell, she acknowledged with a slight nod. I see subtlety has given way to brute force, as we anticipated. Where are your people? Trell demanded. What have you done? Stewart smiled thinly. We've gone where you cannot follow, using methods you chose not to notice we were developing. Humanity has removed itself from your equation. You cannot hide forever, Trell threatened. The Council will find you, and when we do, you misunderstand, Stewart interrupted. We haven't hidden ourselves from you. We've removed ourselves from you. There's a difference. The Admiral leaned forward. Explain. For 73 years, you treated us as tools rather than partners. You used our creativity, our adaptability, our unique cognitive approaches, while denying us true membership in your community. Stewart's expression hardened. So we have withdrawn that which you valued, but did not respect. Return and reverse the damage you've caused, Trell commanded, or face the consequences. The consequences are already unfolding, Stewart replied calmly. Your systems are failing because they were built on our frameworks. Your economies are collapsing because they depended on our innovations. Your societies are destabilizing because they relied on our solutions without acknowledging their source. This is an act of war, Trell declared. Stewart shook her head. No, this is an act of abstention. We are not attacking you. We are simply no longer supporting you. Billions will suffer. Admiral Zortan interjected. A suffering created by your leadership's decisions, Stewart countered. You built dependency without partnership. You constructed hierarchy instead of equality. Now you face the results of those choices. Before Trell could respond, Stewart continued. This transmission serves as formal notification. Earth and humanity officially withdraw from all interaction with the Galactic Council and its member species. We neither seek conflict nor invite negotiation. We simply depart. The transmission terminated, and the probe self-destructed in a small, contained flash that posed no threat to the nearby vessels. In the stunned silence that followed, the Tholian observer spoke again. They have made their statement. The question now is how we respond. Admiral Zortan turned to Trell. High Counselor, our fleet stands ready to enforce the Council's will. Shall we commence orbital bombardment of Earth cities? Force their capitulation? Trell stared at the view screen showing the serene blue planet below. For a moment, his natural aggression urged him toward destruction. But a deeper instinct, one that had guided his rise through Krell politics, held him back. Scan the planet again, he ordered. Full spectrum, maximum resolution. Minutes later, the results confirmed his suspicion. The cities below were empty. The infrastructure remained, the buildings stood intact, but sensors detected no human life signs. Earth had become a perfect, pristine museum of human civilization, without humans. They knew we would consider planetary bombardment, the Admiral realized. They evacuated their entire population before revealing their hand. The impossibility of what they were witnessing slowly sank in. An entire planetary population had disappeared, along with their fleets, their portable technology, and apparently their very presence in the galaxy. The fleet returned to Council space with no answers, only questions. In their absence, the situation had deteriorated further. The Galactic Council Hall itself, now operated on emergency power, its sophisticated systems reduced to basic functionality. The Grand Chamber, where representatives once postured and politicked, sat dark and quiet, too dangerous to occupy, with environmental controls behaving erratically. An emergency governance committee had established temporary headquarters on Dravari Prime, where the most stable remaining systems allowed for minimal continuity of government. Representatives from all major species gathered in a hastily converted warehouse, their status and hierarchy now indicated by physical placement rather than technological displays. The situation worsens by the hour, reported Director Kelvin of Emergency Operations, a Melosian whose hovering form drooped noticeably with exhaustion. 17 agricultural worlds report imminent food shortages. The Cygnus Medical Hub has lost stabilization capacity for critical treatments. Transportation between systems is operating at 12% of normal capacity. What are the outer colonies? Asked Representative Cherna. Many have gone silent, Kelvin replied grimly. Whether from communication failure or societal collapse, we cannot determine. Trell, who had rushed back from the Earth expedition, surveyed the diminished gathering. Many faces that should have been present were absent, stranded on distant worlds, or dealing with crises on their home planets. We must stabilize core systems first, he declared. Prioritize food production, medical services, and essential transportation. With what resources? Demanded Counselor Dravenel of the Dravari. Our engineers can barely understand the human components integrated into our infrastructure, let alone replace them quickly. Then we must adapt, Trell insisted. Revert to older systems if necessary. We survived before humans joined the Council. We will survive after their betrayal. Betrayal? Echoed an unfamiliar voice. All eyes turned to Counselor Atreides Dar, an elderly Vesperid rarely seen at Council functions. Her gossamer wings caught the makeshift lighting as she rose from her seat at the back of the room. Is it betrayal when the exploited finally refuse exploitation? She asked, her melodic voice carrying easily through the silent chamber. Is it treachery when those denied fair partnership withdraw their contribution? This is hardly the time for a philosophical debate, Trell growled. On the contrary, Atreides Dar replied, this is precisely the time to examine the choices that brought us here. She moved to the center of the gathering, her slight form commanding attention through presence rather than physical stature. We welcomed humans into our galactic community with one face, while binding them with invisible chains using another, she stated. We praised their innovations while ensuring they could never rise to equal standing. We integrated their work into the foundation of our civilization while maintaining the fiction of their inferiority. Murmurs ran through the assembly, some angry, some uncomfortable. Who benefited most from keeping humans in their subordinate position? She asked pointedly. The Krell, whose military technologies incorporated human programming. The Shandari, whose biomedical advancements relied on human genetic research. The Dravari, whose financial systems were maintained by human security protocols. The accusations hung in the air, unanswered but undeniable. We thought we were binding them to us, Atreus Dar continued, her voice softening. Instead, we bound ourselves to them, becoming dependent on their contributions while denying them appropriate recognition and authority. Trell's scales darkened with anger. What would you have us do? Beg them to return. I would have us learn, she replied simply. Learn that true strength comes from genuine partnership, not exploitation. Learn that diversity of thought and approach strengthens rather than threatens us. Learn that arrogance blinds us to our own vulnerabilities. Pretty words, Trell scoffed, but they don't restore our failing systems or feed hungry populations. No, Atreus Dar acknowledged. That hard work lies ahead, whether humans return or not. But if we hope to rebuild better than before, we must understand why our foundation crumbled so easily. The emergency committee dissolved into factions after that, some advocating aggressive search for human remnants to force their assistance, others suggesting complete rebuilding of infrastructure without human components, still others proposing diplomatic outreach despite Chancellor Stewart's clear statement. As the galactic crisis deepened, rumors spread of outright war between council species. The Krell accused the Shandari of hoarding functional technology. The Dravari restricted movement through their territories, citing security concerns. Smaller species formed protective alliances, withdrawing from council authority entirely. The carefully constructed interstellar community, built over centuries of diplomatic effort, began to fracture along ancient fault lines previously hidden beneath the veneer of cooperation. In a hidden facility deep within an unremarkable star system far from council space, Commander Doss presented the latest intelligence to General Stucker. The command center hummed with the same purposeful activity, though the displays now showed widespread disorder throughout formerly council-controlled territory. The Orion sector has declared independence from council authority, Doss reported. The Proxima colonies are refusing all starship traffic regardless of species. Multiple systems have reverted to pre-council governance structures. Stucker nodded, watching the cascading effects of implode resolution with clinical detachment. Any direct threats to our position? None detected, Director Ward answered. All tracking countermeasures remain intact. As far as the Council knows, humanity has simply vanished. And our people? Stucker asked. Relocation to Haven Systems is 97% complete, Ward confirmed. The final transports will arrive within 48 hours. Haven was the code name for the network of star systems humanity had secretly prepared over decades. Worlds carefully selected for their resources, strategically positioned outside normal trade routes, systematically erased from Council astronomical records through subtle data manipulation. While publicly playing the role of eager but junior council member, Earth had been methodically creating its independent future. We've received another diplomatic overture, Doss noted. This one from Councillor Atreus Dar of the Vespered Enclaves. Unlike previous messages, she acknowledges the Council's fundamental errors and suggests meaningful reform. Stucker considered this. File with the others. No response at this time. A junior officer approached with a notification. General, Chancellor Stewart requests your presence in the Strategic Planning Chamber. Stucker found Stewart studying a galactic map showing the accelerating breakdown of Council authority. Regions previously united under central governance now displayed as disconnected fragments, many with warning indicators for conflict or humanitarian crisis. "Is this what we intended?" Stewart asked quietly as Stucker entered. The general joined her at the display. "We intended our freedom and security. The Council's structural fragility is of their own making." Stewart nodded slowly. "True, but I wonder if we underestimated how quickly their systems would collapse without our support." "We removed our technology and expertise as planned," Stucker replied. "We didn't sabotage their existing capabilities." "Sometimes the absence of a keystone brings down the entire arch," Stewart observed. The Council species had grown so accustomed to our contributions that they forgot how to function without them. She gestured to a section of the map where planetary indicators pulsed red. "These agricultural worlds face immediate food shortages. Billions of beings, none of whom determine Council policy, may starve. That's not our responsibility," Stucker stated firmly. "The Council leadership made their choices." Stewart turned to face her. "And we've made ours. The question now is, what comes next? Do we maintain total isolation? Do we selectively re-engage? Do we watch as the galaxy fractures into competing powers, potentially creating greater threats to our future security?" Before Stucker could respond, an alert sounded. A communications officer reported, "Chancellor, we're receiving a broadcast on all frequencies. It's being transmitted throughout former Council space." "Source?" Stewart asked sharply. "Unknown. Our analysts believe it originates from multiple locations simultaneously." "Security risk?" Stucker demanded. "Negative, General. It's audio only, standard compression. No embedded code or tracking mechanisms detected." Stewart nodded. "Let's hear it." The voice that filled the chamber belonged to Counselor Atresdar. Her message, broadcast to every functioning receiver in former Council territory, was simple but profound. "People of the galaxy, we stand at a crossroads. The structures we relied upon have failed us because they were built on inequality and exploitation. In humanity's departure, we face not just a technological crisis, but a moral one. We must acknowledge our collective failure to create a truly inclusive galactic community." She continued, her melodic voice carrying conviction. "I propose a new beginning, not a restoration of the old order, but the creation of a genuinely equal association of species. No designated tiers of membership, no hidden privileges for founding races. No exploitation disguised as integration. To humanity, wherever you may be, we recognize the injustice you endured. We understand your withdrawal. But know this, not all among us supported the policies that drove you away. Many of us sought reform from within, though our voices were often silenced. The galaxy faces unprecedented challenges now. Suffering spreads, while former powers bicker over diminishing resources. If you can hear this message, consider this. Vengeance through absence has made its point. Perhaps now, reconciliation through presence might achieve what was previously impossible, a galactic community worthy of the name." The transmission ended, leaving silence in the strategic chamber. Atresdar was always an advocate for substantive reform, Stewart noted, even when the Council dismissed her as idealistic. "A convenient position to take now that they're desperate," Stucker countered. Stewart studied the galactic map again, focusing on the humanitarian crisis indicators. "General, prepare a proposal for limited humanitarian intervention in the worst affected systems. Medical supplies, food reserves, nothing that reveals our technology or location, but enough to prevent mass suffering." Stucker stiffened. "Chancellor, with respect, that contradicts our security protocols. Any interaction risks exposure." "I'm well aware," Stewart replied, "but we left to reject exploitation, not to become indifferent to suffering." She turned back to the map. Humanity removed itself from a corrupt system. The question now is what we build in its place: absolute isolation or selective engagement on our terms. "And if it's a trap?" Stucker pressed. "Then we withdraw again," Stewart said simply. "We've proven we can do that quite effectively." As the discussion continued, the galaxy outside remained in turmoil. The Galactic Council, once the proud embodiment of interstellar cooperation, existed now primarily in name. Individual species retreated to their core territories, protecting what resources remained. Smaller conflicts erupted along contested borders as opportunists took advantage of the power vacuum. Yet in this chaos lay possibility. Without the constraining structures of the old order, new connections formed. Species previously marginalized found their voices. Alternative forms of interstellar cooperation emerged organically, based on mutual need rather than hierarchical control. Throughout it all, humanity watched from their hidden sanctuaries, deliberating their future role in a transformed galaxy. They had demonstrated the ultimate leverage, the power to simply walk away, taking their contributions with them. The question that remained was whether they would choose to return on new terms or maintain their hard-won independence permanently. In Council archives, increasingly difficult to access as systems continued to degrade, a message remained permanently displayed on every interface, a reminder of the lesson so painfully learned. You knew exactly what you were doing. Now we do too. Diplomacy died in the silence you created. Now listen to the sound of our absence. The galaxy listened, and in that absence, in that silence, perhaps heard more clearly than ever before. 6 months after humanity's disappearance, a small humanitarian convoy appeared in the Thero system. The agricultural world, once a primary food producer for 12 neighboring systems, had descended into chaos when its automated farming systems failed. Billions faced starvation as crops withered in fields that could no longer be harvested or processed efficiently. The convoy consisted of unmarked vessels carrying emergency food supplies, portable medical units, and basic agricultural equipment that required no complex technology to operate. No humans were visible. The ships operated by automated systems. But the message was clear. Humanity was watching and had chosen limited intervention. Similar convoys appeared at other crisis points throughout former Council space. Each followed the same pattern: practical assistance without direct contact, aid without re-engagement. The supplies bore no Earth insignia, but each included simple manuals showing how communities could rebuild essential services without dependency on centralized systems. Some Council remnants viewed these actions with suspicion. High Counselor Trell, whose influence had diminished but not disappeared, publicly denounced the deliveries as manipulation through mercy. Other leaders, facing the practical reality of suffering populations, welcomed the assistance regardless of its source or political implications. Counselor Atreus Dar's proposal gained traction among mid-tier worlds and formerly marginalized species. Representatives gathered on Vesperid Prime to discuss a new form of interstellar association, one built on principles of genuine equality and transparent governance. Their deliberations were careful, measured, conscious of the mistakes that had doomed their predecessor. We must create systems that cannot be captured by any single species or alliance, Atreus Dar insisted during the opening session. Power must be distributed. Dependencies must be mutual and acknowledged. Technologies must be shared rather than hoarded. The gathering, initially dismissed by former Council powers as irrelevant, steadily grew in influence as it demonstrated practical solutions to immediate problems. Species with complementary strengths formed working partnerships. Worlds with abundant resources established fair trade agreements with those possessing technical expertise. The hierarchical structure that had defined Council. Relationships gave way to a network of interconnected nodes, each valuable in its unique way. 1 year after Chancellor Stewart's historic announcement, a message arrived at the primary communication hub of this emerging network. It requested a meeting between representatives of the new association and humanity. The proposed location was Aridan Prime, the world humans had abandoned, where the Shandari infiltration team had found that enigmatic animation of a released bird. The choice of location was symbolic, impossible to misinterpret. Humans would return to a place they had willingly left, signaling both their freedom to depart and their choice to potentially re-engage. A delegation from a new association, led by Atreus Dar herself, arrived to find the once-abandoned administrative complex restored to functionality. The empty halls now hummed with power. The dormant systems reactivated, though noticeably altered from their previous configuration. Chancellor Stewart greeted them personally, accompanied by a small group that included General Stucker and Director Ward. The human delegation maintained formal distance, but their willingness to appear in person rather than via hologram represented a significant shift from total isolation. "We have observed your efforts with interest," Stewart began once formalities were exchanged. "Your approach differs substantially from the Council's methods." "Necessity has proven an effective teacher," Atrisdar replied. "When existing structures collapse, one must build anew rather than attempting to recreate flawed designs." The discussions that followed were careful, precise, neither side willing to commit to specific agreements, but both acknowledging possibilities for limited cooperation. Humans offered technical assistance for critical humanitarian infrastructure, medical systems, food production, environmental management, while making clear they would maintain their independence and the secrecy of their location. "We did not withdraw to punish," Stewart explained during a private conversation with Atrisdar. "We withdrew to protect ourselves and to demonstrate an inescapable truth. Their relationships built on exploitation eventually collapse under their own contradictions." "And now," the Vespered counselor asked, "what future do you envision?" Stewart considered her answer carefully. "One where we engage selectively, on equal terms, maintaining our sovereignty while contributing to collective well-being where our interests align. Not integration, but interaction." As the meeting concluded, both delegations recognized that a fundamental shift had occurred. The galaxy would not return to its previous order, could not, even if desired. The Council's collapse had created space for new forms of cooperation, new balances of power, new recognition of interdependence. Humanity would remain apart in significant ways, their full capabilities and location known only to themselves. Their intervention would be measured, strategic, always preserving their ability to withdraw again if necessary. Yet they would no longer be entirely absent, their silence replaced by carefully chosen words, their isolation tempered by selective presence. The message humans had left throughout Council space remained as a permanent reminder. You knew exactly what you were doing. Now we do, too. But to this stark declaration, they had effectively added an unspoken corollary. The future would be determined not by past grievances alone, but by the willingness of all species to create something genuinely new from the fragments of what had failed. As Atrisdar's delegation departed, Stewart watched their vessel disappear into the upper atmosphere of Aridan Prime. Beside her, General Stucker maintained her characteristic stoicism. "Do you believe this new association will succeed where the Council failed?" the General asked. "I don't know," Stewart admitted. "But they're asking the right questions, which is more than the Council ever did." She turned away from the viewport, facing the complex they had reclaimed, one small, deliberate step back into galactic affairs. "We showed them the power of absence," she said. "Now we'll show them something equally important. The power of choosing when and how to return." In the vast darkness between stars, humanity's hidden settlements continued their separate evolution, developing technologies and societies unencumbered by external control. Their ships moved carefully through selected corridors, maintaining vigilance, preserving the secret paths they had created during decades of patient preparation. The galaxy would never again mistake humanity's participation for submission. The silence they had created, that terrible, effective absence, remained their ultimate leverage, a reminder that genuine partnership cannot be forced or fabricated. It must be built on mutual respect, freely given and reciprocated. Throughout former Council space, systems slowly stabilized as species adapted to new realities. Some returned to older, less efficient technologies they fully controlled. Others formed research cooperatives to reverse engineer and improve upon human innovations. Many discovered capabilities they had neglected while depending on external solutions. The great powers that had dominated the Council, the Krell, the Shandari, the Dravari, found their influence diminished but not destroyed. They retained their territories, their military strength, their cultural cohesion, but now existed as participants in a more complex, distributed network rather than rulers of a hierarchical structure. Chancellor Stewart, touring a newly established Earth outpost on a previously unclaimed world, paused to observe the sunset. The unfamiliar star cast golden light across alien vegetation, a vista no human had witnessed before humanity's great withdrawal. Was it worth it? Asked Director Ward, who had accompanied her on this inspection visit. Stewart considered the question, watching the play of light through atmosphere unlike Earth's own. Ask me in a century, she replied. Great changes can't be properly evaluated in the moment of their occurrence. She turned back toward the small settlement, where humans worked alongside carefully selected alien specialists on an agricultural project designed to benefit multiple species. But I believe we've created the possibility of something better, for ourselves and perhaps for others. That's all any generation can hope to accomplish. As darkness fell on this outpost at the edge of known space, communication arrays maintained their silent vigilance, ready to sever connection in an instant if necessary. Humanity would never again be trapped by dependency, never again allow their contributions to become chains binding them to unequal partnerships. They had learned to wield absence as effectively as presence. In that knowledge lay not just power, but wisdom, the understanding that sometimes the most profound statement is simply to walk away, leaving others to contemplate the sudden, resounding silence. The galaxy's plans for Earth had indeed ended when humans cut off the line. What would emerge in their place remained unwritten, a future to be negotiated step by careful step, with humanity's finger always near the disconnect switch, ready if necessary, to once again demonstrate the power of their absence. In the Galactic Council archives, now maintained by a coalition of species working to preserve knowledge despite technological challenges, historians documented this pivotal moment in interstellar relations. They named it simply the silent departure. Its consequences would echo through generations, a lesson written not in declarations or treaties, but in the sudden, profound space left by those who chose to sever ties rather than accept continued exploitation. The silence spoke. The galaxy listened. And in that exchange, invisible but undeniable, lay the seeds of transformation.